The YouTube has started. Hello, YouTube. We are going to hit record on this bad boy in T-minus a few seconds. Although I did hear somebody open my garage door, and I'm not exactly sure why. And we don't want that.
Uh-oh.
There's a lot of buzzing going on with someone right now. I hear Chaz's resident clicky sound. That we've just kind of gotten used to, yeah. But Robinson, are you doing anything different? Charging your computer or?
No, but I am going to turn my phone on to airplane mode.
Okay. Because there's a really loud humming sound. Could it be one of your connectors by chance? I can tell you who it is real quick by just muting one of you. Oh, wait. Hold on. That might be better. Say something, Robinson.
I'm here.
I think it is you.
Did I
say something else?
Say hello, testing 1, 2, 3.
Yeah, you're just a little fuzzy.
I unplugged and replugged in my microphone, and that was my headphone. So microphone out.
Whoa! Give me a heads up. Hold on.
Oh.
Wow. Okay. Now is that microphone still working? Tap tap. Yeah. I don't know. That's better. Before it was now it's better. Okay. I'm ready if you are.
Go for it.
Yeah, I'm ready.
Okie dokie. Hold on 1 second. Let's turn that up a little. We'll start the recording. Archiving. And 5, 4, 3, 2. Let's start that over. You hear that? It was all crackly.
Yep.
That was all fucked up. All right. This should be better. Here we go. 5, 4, 3, 2. Still sounds shitty. The fuck is going on?
This device is all wacky.
Yeah, hold on a second. Maybe I got this turned up too loud. Huh.
It sounds distorted.
Yeah, it's all fucked.
Yeah.
There we go. All right. 5, 4, 3, 2. Welcome to the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast. I am your host. We are streaming to you live on youtube.com and into your eardrums all around the world via podcast on iTunes or your favorite podcast catching application. That's what podcasts are. They are the way of the radio, ladies and gentlemen. My favorite radio show is no longer on the fucking radio. It is now just a podcast, but we'll get into that. I am here with me, as always, my two very good friends, the disembodied voice of Chaz and Robinson. Say hello, gentlemen.
Hello, gentlemen.
Yes. Chaz is, I think he's undergoing some sort of gender reassignment surgery. And so
being tired as fuck.
Tired as fuck surgery. And that is why he is not gracing us with his face this evening. I was going to say that he actually got into a fight with 4 guys, and so he got the shit beat out of him. But you should see the other guys. And he just didn't want to scare his mother when she watches the show, thinking like, oh my God, look at his face. He'll heal. He'll be fine. Don't worry. Either that or he forgot to clean up his studio room. And so it's just a big mess. But we are back. We are here. We are live. We took a few weeks off, unplanned, because we had every intention of doing the show last week. But it didn't work out that way. So here we are this week. It is March the 25th. And I just realized we're a bit in the shit with the podcast because once again, the technology that we use to do this show is the most inconsistent, fucktaculous problem. And for the last year and a half, we've been using a service that hosts our files for us. And then the podcast is available and it's downloaded from that service. And most people don't realize that when you download a podcast, you're not downloading it from iTunes. You're downloading it from wherever it is hosted on a website owned and operated by the podcast creator. So we have a sort of blog in the background that hosts these files. And so now, all of a sudden, they've decided we're no longer going to offer the public links to the files like we used to. Causes problems, but we'll figure it out like we always do, because that's just what we do. Anyway.
Jackson is wearing glasses now.
Yes, Jackson started wearing glasses a few weeks ago, and we realized he was squinting at the TV, and I said, great. He picked up the genes that both myself and Rachel have with bad eyesight, nearsightedness. Got his eyes tested, and the doctor said, yep, you don't see very well. And he was super self-conscious about them at first and thought, he's like, I look really dumb. And so I asked him, Jackson, who do you think would tell you the truth about how you look if I sent them a picture? And he said, my mother would tell him the truth. So, which was totally bizarre. My mother, right. So I sent her a picture, and then she told him that he looked perfectly handsome. And so now he has no problem wearing them. He didn't believe me. He didn't believe his other grandparents. He didn't believe Rachel, but he believed my mother for whatever reason.
Okay.
So interestingly enough, Dropbox decided they're not going to host our files anymore. So I'm thinking about putting them up on SoundCloud and trying to figure out if that will work, because last time I checked, they didn't have a direct download option. But I know that other podcasts use SoundCloud for their file hosting, so we'll just have to figure it out. It wouldn't be the first time that we had to figure something like that out. Anyway, I was saying something during the intro, and then I forgot. I said we would get into that, but I don't remember what I said we would get into. Oh, yes. Proof positive that podcasts are now taking radio and squashing it. There was a show on the radio that I listened to for the last 7 years. It's a paranormal radio show called Darkness Radio out of Minneapolis, St. Paul, the Twin Cities News Talk radio station. And I've been listening to them. They went from a 1 hour format to then a 2 hour format, then a 3 hour format, 5 nights a week.
Wow.
Talk radio, all about the paranormal, aliens, ghosts, psychic abilities, true crime on Tuesdays. Super good show. And all of a sudden, I realized I wasn't seeing the reposting of the nightly show as a podcast in my podcast application anymore. It wasn't there. And I was thinking, oh man, don't tell me they pulled the podcast, because it's hard for me to listen to the show live because it's 3 hours long, number one, and it's on pretty late at night, number two. So I would listen to the podcast as a replay, and it stopped showing up. And I was concerned and then confused. And then all of a sudden, everything sort of changed. And the host of the show came out and said, hey, we just wanted to let everybody know what's going on. We came in on Thursday, and the owners of, I think iHeartRadio owns that radio station, because it's basically iHeartRadio owns every radio station now. There are no more independent radio stations in this country. They're all owned by a few giant juggernauts, Clear Channel, iHeartRadio, and that's about it. And they basically said, hey, thanks for showing up. Last night was your last broadcast. And the host then had to scramble, change all the passwords to his social media stuff and everything that was this Darkness Radio name. And because he made it up, it's his, he owned it, but he didn't want the radio station to try to take it from him. So he changed all the passwords and dug into Twitter and Facebook and Instagram and everywhere that they had these social media accounts, and downloaded all of the podcast files and the images and everything. And then basically did a live YouTube stream like this saying, hey, the radio show is gone. They canceled us with no warning, but we convinced Podcast One, which is a big podcasting network on the internet, to give us a shot. And they became the most downloaded, most listened to podcast on the Podcast One network within 24 hours. And that is proof to me that podcasting is the future of this media format that we are part of. And it's pretty exciting. I was looking at the numbers, and here, real time numbers. If I look at our podcast feed and I go all-time numbers, 11,832 listeners, subscribers to the podcast. And then I realized that we are not available on some of the big platforms that host podcasts. Google Play, we're not there. There's another one that somebody shared with me the other day that they get podcasts from, and I said, because a lot of them use the repository from iTunes, but then there are other ones that don't. So, and we can get on Spotify. So I'm going to look into that while I'm looking into a new hosting format for the audio files. So for those that are watching or listening to this right now, know that it may be a short delay between this live show and when the podcast comes out, because we're working on a new hosting solution. But do not fear. The podcast will arrive, and hopefully at the same time, the podcast will hit Spotify and Google Play and anywhere else that the podcasts do not pull directly from iTunes, and will make us more available. But more to come. Stay tuned to the Facebook. That's where I will post any new information. So Robinson,
Yes.
how was your trip back from Vietnam?
It's okay, I guess. I spent a lot of time in airports again. I missed a flight, but
You missed a flight. Was it your fault or the airline's fault?
well, it was my fault because I fell asleep. No, I didn't fall asleep. No, you know, it was the airport Wi-Fi didn't work, and so my clock on my phone didn't change.
Oh shit.
So I missed my flight like by an hour.
Whoops.
So, but they just booked me on the next flight and put me in a hotel.
They really?
Yeah.
They took responsibility for this mistake?
That, but
Well, I mean, they could have told you you have to pay us to reschedule the flight and you're stuck here, so good luck, find yourself a hotel. They didn't have to pay for it.
they didn't have to, but this particular airline has put me up in hotels before whenever I
Wow.
have a long layover. Like if I have like a 10-hour layover,
Yeah.
even if I book it intentionally, they still like get me a hotel room.
That's pretty sweet.
Yeah.
What airline is this?
China Eastern.
China Eastern, as opposed to China Western. That'd be kind of weird.
Well, there's China Southern. But I don't want to fly through China anymore. It's just like going through customs is a pain in the dick. They're just like really super like fucking uptight. They're so uptight that they have like medics that stand at the off ramp of every plane, and they give
Medics?
medics giving a visual inspection of everybody. And if somebody looks even remotely sick, they take them off to the side.
What?
And they investigate. Why do you look sick?
Make sure you don't have bird flu.
Yeah. Why are your lips white? Why are you coughing? You know, what disease do you have that you want to bring into this country?
Huh.
What? the fuck?
What? I would fuck with them. I would like put some glycerin drops under my nose and like rub my eyes with like a wool blanket or something and cat dander and be like, oh no, I'm totally fine, I promise. And then like smell like booze. Then I'd miss my flight. That's a bad idea. That's like dumping beer on your head and driving the speed limit, kind of swerving back and forth and waiting for a cop to pull you over to give you a breathalyzer and being like, ha! Nothing! Fuck you, pig. Don't do that. That's a bad idea.
No, don't do that.
Yeah, don't do that. Don't do that.
Very bad.
I think I shared the story once on this show about Robinson's really great advice on how to deal with cops when I was a teenager. And when he
Worst advice.
did I share this story before?
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah. Just crack the window and hand him your ID and say, name and badge number, please. I know my rights. Nowadays, that'll get you shot
Yes.
16 times, center mass. Doesn't even matter. I don't even look that Mexican. It'd get me deported in Arizona. So I've been disappointed. I have a shirt. I found it at the Goodwill. It's an orange t-shirt and it says legalize Arizona. And I was really hoping that I would have the opportunity to wear it more after the 2016 election cycle, but that's it's just been, everybody thought it was going to be really scary, and the reality is it's just been really kind of sad and just heartbreakingly sad to watch the extraordinary failures coming out of Washington right now and everybody being completely incapable of doing their jobs. But pretty soon we'll all be speaking Russian. So
Yep.
that's exciting. But that kind of brings me to the topic that I wanted to discuss this evening. Well, there are kind of two topics. Topic number one is something that Robinson and I were chatting about a little bit before, and then Chaz, you got really mad a few weeks ago because we were quoting an article that was written by the organization called Narconon. And
Yeah.
well, and the only reason you got upset was because you wanted to make sure that we knew that Narconon was run by Scientology. And it didn't sway what the article had been talking about. So it kind of didn't matter in that circumstance, but I did want to address it because there was a recent news article that came out from a reporter, and I thought about playing the phone call on the show tonight, but I don't know that I have permission to do that, so I'm not going to. The long and short of it is, this is a woman who reports a lot on addiction, recovery, sobriety, and the epidemic that is addiction in this country or around the world. And somebody tipped her off that Narconon was a fully owned subsidiary of the Church of Scientology. And with the recent Leah Remini Scientology hullabaloo that's been going on the last 6-8 months, anything touched by Scientology has basically become very tarnished, more so than ever before. Narconon, as an organization, has been around for quite a while. And so this woman called them, spoke to the receptionist, and basically asked, hey, is Narconon part of Scientology? And they were really cagey about it and said, no. Okay, but do you base your teachings off of L. Ron Hubbard's books about Scientology? And they said, yes. Okay, so tell me how it's not associated with Scientology if you're using L. Ron Hubbard's books and teachings. And then the receptionist basically said, okay, cool, great, thanks, have a nice life. And then the director of the UK Narconon called her back, because that's how Scientologists are. They're super paranoid, and they wanted to know, why is this reporter calling asking about Scientology? We need to get to the bottom of this. And the dude was talking out of both sides of his mouth. On one hand, he would say there's no affiliation, no association with Scientology. But on the other hand, he himself, the director of the UK Narconon, is a Scientologist and admitted that they use L. Ron Hubbard's books and his teachings, especially with the people that are new to the Narconon program. And if you read even just the Narconon website, it's very Scientology like. The words they use, they talk about the technology that they use to overcome addiction. They talk about it being a global problem and how they're going to rid the earth of addiction. And that's very Scientology, right? They're going to fix the planet, the Scientologists. They're going to fix the earth. And that is a lofty goal, mind you, and not something that Scientology is ever going to be able to do. Where did you find this article, Robinson, so that I can figure out what this little twerp keeps popping in here trying to ask me?
Actually watching television and saw the commercial on TV and just decided to uh, do a quick YouTube search for it to see if YouTube had this commercial that I wanted to copy and paste into your your Facebook, but I didn't find the commercial that I was looking for. I just found a bunch of other like weird commercials and shit, and then I just found that on YouTube because of this commercial I saw on television. So, um, yeah, I just thought that was kind of weird. And no, I want to say, let me ask you a question.
Sure.
How many different religions have been created based on the Bible?
Oh, can you count that high, Chaz?
Yeah.
I mean,
I mean,
correct me if I'm wrong. You're smarter than me.
then there's Catholics. They're all based on that same book, but
Well, and even
Catholicism is not Protestant.
but even beyond that, the 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 different books that different religions use
Yes,
are very, very, very similar. The stories are similar.
the stories are similar,
So,
but their stories are based on one book and not on each other.
well, and I mean, you look at the
I'm not
Book of
trying to-
Mormon.
I'm not trying to defend Scientology or anything, but just there's another book, an entirely different book that is based on, and not just a book, but an entire school of thinking and belief that is based on L. Ron Hubbard's writing, which is called the Book of Urantia. Has absolutely nothing to do with Scientology.
Well, I think the problem with Scientology is not so much that somebody new came along and wanted to create a religion. The problem with Scientology is that they have this religious status, they pay no taxes, they make billions of dollars, and they entrap people by essentially
Entrapping them.
well, by mentally abusing them into believing that there's something wrong with them.
And then
And
financially enslaving them by
right. In order to progress up the Scientology ladder, you must give them literally tens of thousands of dollars to buy the books and take the programs, and then you sit down with your hands on the tin can machine and they tell you that there's something unclean about your soul and you need to bear your guilt and share that with this person that's testing you, and they make you disassociate from your family if they're not pure enough for Scientology. And anyone and everyone who says anything bad about Scientology or questions Scientology, they're not just someone of a differing opinion or a different perspective. Those people are the enemy. And that is not so much like Judaism or Catholicism or even Mormonism. Those are religions based more on acceptance and saying, cool, your beliefs are different than my beliefs, but that doesn't make me hate you. And people give the Islamic religion a tremendous amount of shit because there is parts of the Quran that say that anyone who does not follow the teachings of the Prophet Muhammad are infidels and, 200 years ago, 1,000 years ago, deserved to die. But that was the same thing with Catholicism. I mean, the Spanish Inquisition was not a pretty thing. And you could say the same thing about Hitler and the Third Reich and how they wanted to cleanse the earth of the non-white, the non-Aryan, the what do they call it? What was it? It was the race, the
Jews.
no. They called themselves,
They called themselves the Aryan race.
well, but they called themselves the something race, like not the perfect race,
Master?
the master race. There you go. The master race. The Scientologists are just so fucking sketchy and cagey, and they sucker people in. They make you feel part of something that's going to change the world, and then they won't let you out. And if you want out, they will excommunicate you from the church. And chances are all of your friends, all of your family are part of this now too. And they have to, it's called disassociation. They have to completely stop all communication with you, or they can't be part of the church anymore. It's, if you haven't watched any of this Leah Remini thing, and I know everybody, you know, that not everybody, but the people that are against it, or the people that are trying to defend Scientology and all of this, they'll say she has an agenda and whatever. But this was a woman that was part of this organization for 30 plus years. And she was wealthy and a celebrity and rose up the ranks, and finally got out because she realized that all of these billions of dollars that this company was taking in, no good was being done with it. No good in any way, shape, or form was being done with this money. Just the continued recruitment and entrapment of impressionable people, who then would give, like, people give the Mormon religion a lot of shit for taking 10% of your wages as your contribution every month, every 2 weeks, every year to that church. Like your dues. What do they call it, Chaz?
Tithing.
Your tithing. Yeah, your tithing is a mandatory 10%. And they think that's ridiculous. Well, Scientology, they don't even call it a tithing. You don't have to give to be part of it, but you can't be part of it without paying for it. And they will go out of their way to make you feel inferior, make you feel unworthy, until you take the sessions, until you read the books, until you are put in front of that machine. I forget what L. Ron Hubbard called it, but it's literally a bullshit lie detector type machine, where if the needle moves, you're withholding something, and the person that's doing the test on you will basically tell you, hey, the needle's moving. I don't think you're being honest with me. And the stress that these people are under to not make the needle move in the wrong direction is such that they will make shit up just to get out of that environment. It is super fucked in so many ways. If you have a chance, find it online. It is called Scientology: The Aftermath. It is Leah Remini. She was on Saved by the Bell. She was on The King of Queens was her big TV show, her big breakout TV show. And she was a Scientologist for 35 years. And she's now made it her mission to basically out Scientology for what it really is. And what's funny is L. Ron Hubbard was laughing all the way to the bank until he died. I mean, the dude is literally worshipped as a prophet.
Died
until he left his mortal shell and went to planet Xenu.
So there's no record of his death. You know that, right?
I'm not surprised. He lived on a boat in the middle of the ocean because he was wanted in several countries.
Yeah.
So the reason we bring up Scientology, this is not a religious-based show, but Chaz, when we brought up Narconon and you got a little tiffed about it, tell me why. Why did it rub you the wrong way when we brought up Narconon a few episodes ago?
Because of the deception, basically. I mean, really, it's like there's Narconon, like NA. People say like Al-Anon,
Right.
Alcoholics Anonymous.
Narcotics Anonymous.
Narcotics Anonymous, Alcoholics Anonymous, and then there's the whole process or concept of the Anon groups, which are the family of the addicts or the alcoholic, right?
Yeah, and Narconon is just it's almost like intentionally deceptive,
Right.
and so people will come across it and they'll be like, oh, well, I found it on Narconon, and they're thinking they found it on Narcotics Anonymous or on the Anon version of Narcotics Anonymous, but they're actually getting it from Scientology.
Right. And it doesn't say anything about Scientology
Nope.
anywhere on the website, on any of the pamphlets or any of the literature. And Robinson said this today when we were texting about it. There is no, or was no, trademark or copyright on the concept of these anon groups. So they decided we're going to be Narconon, and nobody could stop them from being Narconon. And what's funny is the guy, the director or the president or whomever the fuck he was, go find maybe I'll post a link to the YouTube video that I watched today about it that had the recording of this phone call that I'm referring to. But this director guy was kind of stepping all over his own dick trying to explain the situation to this reporter, saying, I'm a Scientologist, but Scientology, part of being a Scientologist is you don't drink, you don't do drugs. These things are not just bad for you, but they lessen your ability to be this universal soul of doing good for the universe. And so they look down upon people who use drugs or take drugs. So the whole concept that one came from the other is sort of weird because they don't really make a lot of sense together. But what it really comes down to is money. And so if I'm going to pay Narconon to be part of their rehab, then that money is also going to fund part of Scientology. And if I am an addict suffering through an addiction and in the early stages of sobriety, how goddamn weak and impressionable are you? You are at your weakest willed point probably ever in your life. So if you're being introduced to the big book of Alcoholics Anonymous, and that's how you end up with these lifers in the 12-step programs, or you're being introduced to the writings of L. Ron Hubbard and the concepts of Scientology, this is going to make an impression on you. And if you think that you're in a position now, you've overcome this addiction, and now because you've overcome this adversity in your life, you are now in a position where you can help cleanse the universe of all of the world's problems and make the world a better place through Scientology. This guy said, we don't actively recruit from Narconon. It's like, well, you don't have to actively recruit through Narconon. You can passively recruit through Narconon because all you have to do is introduce them to L. Ron Hubbard and his books and some of the concepts of Scientology, make these people feel like they're part of something. And now when they graduate from rehab, where are they going to go? They're going to go straight to their local chapter of the Church of Scientology and start paying their dues and buying their programs and, get in front of their little tin can machine to tell them everything that's wrong with them beyond the addiction problem. It's fucking twisted. I'm sorry.
Yeah, that's exactly why I got like kind of alarmed.
Right.
That was being brought up.
Sure. Understood. And for good reason, because you see predators in rehab facilities and 12-step meetings, predators in lots of different ways. You see male predators who will prey on weak-willed, drug-addicted females.
Don't they call that 13th stepping?
Maybe. I've heard a few different definitions of 13th stepping. 13th stepping can also be referring to you, instead of you trying to teach somebody the ways of the 12 steps, you've basically decided to teach them your own philosophy of sobriety and what you believe is the way forward. That may not have anything to do with the 12 steps. So it's just your opinion, your views, your own philosophy. But 13th stepping someone into your bedroom definitely makes sense too. But yeah, I mean, you see predators there all the time. These guys that are, you know, they talk a big game, they talk about their sobriety and how much time they've got, but they're the first one to offer the, you know, young girl that's struggling with a cocaine addiction, hey, you should come back to my house. We'll do some step work. And then they're trying to get in their pants.
I love that. Do some step work. Okay, we'll come back to my place and not do cocaine together.
Or do cocaine together. That's the worst part.
But like just saying it like step work. I mean, how do you do that? Like, let's work on not doing something.
We're gonna learn this little dance. It's called the horizontal mambo. And they tell you don't get into a relationship within the first year of your sobriety. And okay, so we won't get into a relationship. We'll just fuck. How about that? Sounds good. So they're impressionable. They're easy to manipulate. And you can certainly manipulate these people by promising recovery and sobriety. Or you can even more easily manipulate somebody into sleeping with you if you can promise them free drugs.
Yep. The euphoria from an orgasm is supposed to be when you're in recovery. They say the euphoria is the same as sex. Sex is the next best replacement to a coke high.
Well, there you go.
So, which leads you to this. Hey,
sure. Well, and the sad part is that anyone, and this is kind of the next part of the conversation, is the mental health side, the healthcare side of rehab, and the fact that a handful of years ago when the Affordable Care Act came around, and in this legislation, it was mandated that addiction treatment and rehab to a certain degree had to be part of the packages, just like mental health had to be part of the healthcare packages that were being sold to the public. You could no longer sell somebody a healthcare plan and have it not cover those things. What was the first thing that was pulled out of this bill that crashed and burned 2 days ago from our new president? Well, it was the things that can actually help people and the things that were taking money away from big business, big rehab business. It was, no, the insurance companies won't cover this anymore. So now it comes straight out of your pocket, and less people are going to get treatment because they can't afford it.
Well, here's the weird thing about that is the whole opposition to the AHCA from these quote unquote conservative Republicans was because it didn't initially get rid of that stuff.
Right.
In other words, the people who are opposing it, no one should think that these folks are opposing it based on any kind of moral principles.
No, not because of good, not for good reasons, not for reasons that were meant to protect more people. They were for the reasons that our lovely Speaker of the House decided at 3:00 in the morning, the day before they were supposed to vote on this bill, that he was going to pull those things out.
Yeah. In other words, they are not doing anyone any favors by
No.
opposing it. They are not standing up for principles by opposing it. They're opposing it because they want people to die.
Because it didn't go far enough.
I am at a point in this whole debate where I cannot be convinced of any other reason why someone would be so opposed to so many of these different things other than they actively want people to die.
Well,
I
call the herd.
I cannot be convinced of any other reason why. It's like, you take this stuff away, people will die.
Right.
What other effect do you see coming about from this?
And this coming from someone, you, who works on the mental health side of this environment every day.
Mhm.
And the sad part is that we finally got to a point over the last 7 years where people with addiction troubles could get help. They could get help that wasn't going to bankrupt them. And we might have been able to get to a point where we could have started to make some ground up with the serious opioid addiction epidemic that is consuming the young people in this country.
Mm-hmm.
But
yeah, at a time when the fucking the number of deaths from opioid related drugs surpassed automobile deaths.
Yeah.
And they want to then roll back the coverage for drug treatment
for the same reason that they don't want needle exchanges in their backyard, and they don't want Narcan to be available to EMTs and paramedics, because you are the scum of the earth. You're a dirty, HIV-ridden homosexual addict.
I mean,
And
the only thing that really will result from this is death.
yeah.
I mean, anyone who's telling you, "Oh, it's to drive down cost, it's
No.
to increase quality," no, people are going to die.
Well, and the Congressional Budget Office, nonpartisan. Okay, we don't even need to get into partisan politics in any of this. The CBO said this will not do what they're saying it will do. And when the CBO said the ACA was going to have this, that, or that problem, then of course everybody piles on saying, see, this is a nightmare. And costs went up, right? But costs had been going up for the last 30 years. And the costs didn't go up any quicker or any more than they had been before. The costs are going up because the insurance companies are fucking greedy douchebags. That's why the costs go up. And they want to say now, well, the CBO is saying these bad things, but the CBO is full of shit. So the CBO's the end all be all of information gathering when it suits their needs. But then when it goes against what they want, the CBO is full of shit. Same with like our unemployment numbers. The unemployment numbers were going down, going down, going down. Those are phony numbers. The real unemployment numbers are more like 30 or 40%. And then the numbers come out recently and it's, you see how great those numbers are? Yeah. Thumbs up for me.
To be honest, I think that we are currently seeing the last that we're going to see of these politicians in office right now.
I agree.
I mean, it's
a lot of them.
I don't know how Ryan, I don't know how any of these other folks come back from this shit, because I don't even see any conservative people talking about it.
No,
in good terms, like, oh, this healthcare package is a great idea.
Well, it's gone now. It's gone,
Yeah.
and our new president, like him or not, he has said it's over, and we're not revisiting this anytime soon. We're done. It's over. It failed. It was a bad idea, even though I supported it as the best idea. It was a bad idea. I told them to pull it, and now we're moving on to the next best thing, tax cuts for billionaires. But that's a whole nother conversation. The sad part is and this is actually kind of funny. I have watched dozens of sort of on the street, microphone in your face videos, little news clips of people that have absolutely no idea what they support, why they support it, and what it is. You literally have someone saying, fuck Obamacare. It's the worst thing ever. I get my insurance through the Affordable Health Care Act.
You mean
It's
the
the
Affordable
best,
Care Act?
the Affordable Care Act. That's the best thing ever. So they're the same goddamn thing. One, they gave it the name Obamacare as a slight, as a dig. And yet we have idiots thinking, yes, this name of it makes it evil and bad and stupid and the worst thing ever. But I love it when it's named this. We also
Well,
have, go ahead.
Well, I was going to say, I have to be totally fair. I used to call it Trump Care when it first came out, but I do kind of retract that now. It's just fucking Ryan Care.
Yeah, no, it's
I
bullshit
mean,
care.
this guy Ryan, I'm sorry, I don't think I have adequately expressed my displeasure of him enough. I go after Trump a lot, but this little this little weaselly guy with his stupid facial expressions.
He looks like Eddie Munster.
Well, he always looks like he has this. Well, gee golly, God, sorry to tell you, but you know, he just has this stupid expression on his face.
But he's got really buff guns. He's in really good shape for a 40-some-year-old man. He's really ripped. Sexy.
They have a good smackdown.
But he's got this ridiculous widow's peak, and he looks like Eddie Munster. It's really ridiculous. But
his fucking expressions.
So at the end of the day, you know, I believe that this will very widely open the door to honest to goodness conversations. Maybe not this year, maybe not next year, but an honest conversation about what this country desperately needs, which is Medicare for all. We know that this works. We've been doing it for 40 years, and all it takes is everybody contributes and they negotiate the price of prescription medication. And imagine the negotiating power if instead of, you know, whatever 60 million people, you had 300 million people. The pharmaceutical companies, the doctors, the hospitals, they can still make really good money.
Well, and a good like first step to this that I've always proposed would be let people buy Medicaid.
Sure.
You know, it's like let people buy their health insurance from the government.
Why not?
In other words, if
a public option.
That's exactly what I've always said. A public option.
It was in there 7 years ago. It was in there.
Mm-hmm.
And then it had to get taken out.
Yep. No one wanted to do it.
Nope.
And the reason why is because the insurance companies didn't want to compete.
Oh, the lobbying. Holy shit. I mean, it's the same reason that this whole middle of the night, we're going to get rid of the 10 critical health coverage pieces of this legislation was taken out at 3:00 in the morning by Paul Ryan. It's because these are the things that cost us money, and we don't want to make less money. We want our executives at the tippity top of Cigna and Blue Cross and you name it, Banner, whatever company. We want those guys to continue to make their ridiculous 9-figure salaries and bonuses. And it's really, I mean, we dodged a bullet yesterday when this thing crashed and burned. We definitely dodged a bullet. And because you can't have all the things that they said would stay and get rid of the requirement that people pay in. That's the only thing that makes it work is I'm healthy, I pay, you're not healthy, you don't have to pay as much. That's how insurance works. I mean, I've been paying Geico for the last 10 years for car insurance, and I understand that my premium is what pays for the jackass that's had 3 accidents in those 10 years. I get that. But then I also know that, God forbid, I get into a car accident, I'm covered. That's the point. That's how it works. That's how Apple Care works on my iPhone. I pay $130 and maybe I never use an incident of that insurance, not even once, but I know that I'm covered. And then maybe other people use both of their incidents, and that's okay because I'm covered too. And when we talk about things like drug addiction care, care for addiction, recovery, treatment, we know, and we've talked about this on this show, we know without any doubt, beyond the shadow of a doubt, that treatment versus incarceration works 100% better. And when somebody's going to go to jail, when our prison system is privatized and for profit, then it only makes sense that we don't want people to get treatment for drug abuse, because when you get caught with marijuana in a state where it's a no-no to have marijuana, where do you go? You go to prison. And the state pays the prison company $67 a bed for every single person in that private prison. And they make billions of dollars. So until we can get the money out of shit like that, it can't be fixed. And I know that sounds kind of cynical, but when there's money, people say money is the root of all evil. And when we're talking billions or even trillions of dollars, that is the God's honest truth. Why do you think we've been at war for the last 15 years? Because the private contractors that are over there making 10 times what the soldiers make, getting the no bid contracts on rebuilding roads and bridges in Afghanistan and Iraq, they don't want to
bridges we blew up.
Right. Like they don't want to give up that profit. Fuck no. No way, no how. So we continue to bomb the shit out of places that have nothing to do with terrorism in the US. And it is a form of fucking terrorism. And that's a strong word, and I don't use it lightly. When you have people with millions of dollars or even billions of dollars who want to take the most basic, fundamental human right away from someone, which is the right to live a healthy life and get treatment for illness that may or may not be their fault, right? Like, I get it. I get that you pay more for life insurance if you're a big fat fatty because you're unhealthy. But we don't incentivize health. We in this country, we just treat symptoms, and we don't have anything like the preventative care that exists in other countries where doctors in the UK will get bonuses on their paycheck for every person they get to quit smoking cigarettes. Instead,
or even giving citizens tax breaks if they go and see the doctor when they're not sick.
For preventative care and physicals and things like that, because you cost me more money because of your lifestyle. But what's really sad is then you could zoom out even further and say, okay, then in low income and urban communities, they don't have access to healthy food. They don't have access to good medicine and doctors, or even somebody that can teach them these things. They live next to 5 fast food restaurants, and it costs twice as much to buy fresh food than it does to buy fast food. And then the cycle continues. And it's a cycle like a fucking toilet drain. So yes, Medicare for all, or public option that lets you buy into government health insurance, the same health insurance that all those fuckers in Congress get. What is that?
I'm staying in a hotel, and I just found this book of rolling papers. So look at how many rolling papers there are in this book. Pretty amazing.
That's like at least 1,000 rolling papers.
Well, that's like, yeah, well, a lot of proverbs too. The proverbial rolling paper.
Do you think rolling a joint with the Bible tastes better?
Yes, because the ink is flavored. It's flavored like ink flavor.
It is printed in the blood of sinners.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you don't see a Quran in every hotel room. You don't
Unless
see
you go to
a.
the Middle
You
East.
might see it in every hotel room in the Middle East.
There you go, but not here.
No.
That would be anti-American, apparently.
Well, that was a whole marketing thing that the Gideons did.
A Gideon Bible in every, like, that's a weird Bible. I was just in a hotel a couple of weeks ago, and it was the Holy Bible, and then you flip open the front cover, and it said, left here by the Gideons.
Yeah, it's the regular King James Bible, but the Gideons are a family that basically provide Bibles for hotels.
Why?
They used to provide them for free. Now they charge.
No shit. Could I take a Bible from a hotel? I know it'd probably go to hell for it, but
No, that's what it's there for.
to take it.
Take it, yes.
Really?
Take it.
That's free rolling paper.
Yes. And maybe some, interesting stories if you're in the mood. If you're bored.
It's also a good spanking tool.
Yeah.
It sure is. So, to kind of end on a high note, no pun intended, none at all, I promise, I swear to God. I have a little more hope than I did 60 days ago that there will be things over the next 4 years that are going to be fucked up and backwards. But at the very least, something that really gave me pause was when the ACA, also known as Obamacare, was passed 7 years ago. My little sister was under the age of 26. One of the provisions was that you can stay on your parents' health insurance until age 26, which was 4 years longer than it had been. She was literally in the midst of really trying to figure out how she was going to be able to keep her health insurance because she had a very severe, lifelong, pre-existing condition. And that was that when she was 10 years old, she was diagnosed with type 1 diabetes. Not her fault. She's not a big fat fatty with diabetes because she drinks too much Coca-Cola and eats too much Taco Bell. Her pancreas doesn't work right. 10 years old, diagnosed, and got her health insurance through my parents. She was approaching 23 and knew she was going to have to get her own insurance. The ACA is passed right in the middle of all of this, and all of a sudden she's allowed to stay on my mom and dad's insurance until she's 26. That's a huge benefit. Not to mention that at that point, the stress that they were under was she's 22, almost 23. She doesn't have her shit together. She doesn't have her life together. There's a very real possibility that sometime between 23 and the rest of her goddamn life, that she would allow that insurance to lapse through honestly no fault of her own, other than maybe being between jobs and having to decide whether to pay her insurance premium or pay the rent on her apartment. Why I didn't have health insurance until I was 25. So not having to worry about that anymore. Not having to worry that if she did let her health insurance lapse, she wouldn't be barred from any decent health insurance policy, or at the very least have a health insurance policy that said, oh, we'll cover you, but not for your diabetes, which would be impossible to pay for out of pocket. Somebody that's 25, 26 years old, barely getting by. That went away too. Pre-existing conditions were no longer a reason to prevent somebody from getting coverage. So to be a recovering addict, and part of the reason that I never went to a doctor or a psychiatrist when I was struggling with addiction was because I didn't want it on my health records as a pre-existing condition and then not be able to get health care. So the idea that that would all just poof, go away, potentially yesterday, and the fact that that didn't happen gives me reason to celebrate a little bit. That nobody ever claimed that the ACA was perfect, would be perfect, and wouldn't have problems that needed to be addressed. And guess what? Neither was Social Security. Neither was Medicare. Neither are most big, giant, fuck all pieces of legislation that pass in this country that don't require tweaks and adjustments and fixes and solutions that you can't even think about until they're implemented. But instead, the idea was scrap it. It's a piece of shit. We don't want it. And the fact that that didn't happen, that's a good thing. And I don't have to worry about my little sister today. I don't have to worry about my kids today. And if I take Mr. Trump at his word, this ends now. We won't.
Yeah, we all know what his word is worth.
Right. It's a good point. But hey, I'll take him at the words that he did say. Who knew that healthcare was so complicated? I'll tell you what, everybody knew that.
Before anything like comes up again.
Hopefully, you're definitely working on it.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that. That is in the works, my friend. There is some shady shit that
every other president who's been impeached, they just like politely backed down and resigned. And
yeah, they're like, hey, I am not a crook.
Trump's not going to do that.
No way, man.
He's going to
no chance in hell. Yeah, unless, I mean, the big strong hands of the Republican Party could very easily just say, we'll push you the fuck out.
Hey, Mike, I'm going to read you this post that a friend of mine put on here.
Read it.
You've had 7 years to come up with a better way. 7 years. Thanks, GOP, for failing us.
That's it?
You know this person.
I do? Oh.
Yeah.
Yes. Fantastic.
Yeah.
7 years.
And it's funny because when I first asked them, and they're a big Trump supporter, when I first asked them what their thought of Trump Care was, they immediately deflected. And
Of course. Of course.
no one thinks this is a good idea. No one thought it was. And I'm so
Good
glad to see
Christ.
people finally realizing, yes, the Republicans are failing us.
Yes. And this was the one thing, Chaz, the
Mhm.
one thing that was supposed to be the easiest layup right out the gate. This was we already repealed this in the House of Representatives 60 times in the last 7 years. They literally took a vote 60 different times over the last 7 years with the majority Republican House of Representatives took 60 different procedural votes, knowing full well that it would, even if it got to the desk of the president, it would be vetoed. But they did it more or less as a show of force to say, we are together. We will repeal this the moment we get a chance. They got that fucking chance. They've got all three major parts of the government that are involved in writing any sort of legislation. They've got Congress and they've got the executive. That's all they need. That's all they need.
Mhm.
And they couldn't do it. After 60 votes to repeal it, they couldn't do it. That's incredible to me. And to everybody else. There was I'll share one last little anecdotal story. There was a woman. She went on the news and she told a very moving story about her husband and her husband or her son. Either way.
I think it was her son. Is this
Her
the
son.
McCormick?
Yes.
Yeah.
And how her son benefited so greatly from Trump Care. And that he wouldn't be alive today if it weren't for the wonder and the beauty of the stupid letters. American Health Care Act. Is that what it's called?
AHCA.
AHCA. Add one more letter, it makes it better. He wouldn't be here with us today. He went from a $300 gazillion a month premium down. He lost his job and now his premium is only $86 a month. And if it weren't for that, he would be dead. And God bless you, President Trump. And unfortunately, the conservative talk show host that was talking to this woman had to share with her, sorry to break it to you, Mrs. McCormick, there is no such thing as Trump Care right now. This is just an idea being thrown around. It hasn't passed, certainly hasn't been implemented. So what your son has benefited so greatly from is the ACA, also known as Obamacare.
Yeah.
And of course, she was flabbergasted and denied the whole thing, but it's amazing. It is incredible the length that people will go to support their candidate. And they will literally support their own grandmother being kicked out of the nursing home just because their pride is too big and too strong to say, ooh, this is a bad idea. I can't support this. So then they'll just make up lies. Hey, Donald Trump saved my son's life. No, he didn't. Sorry to break it to you. But the good news is we didn't lose coverage for addiction, recovery, rehabilitation, mental health, substance abuse treatment. We didn't lose any of that yesterday. That still exists. And that is something to be grateful for, proud of, and happy about. Because if you are suffering from an addiction, whether it's an addiction of prescription drugs or an addiction of illegal drugs or alcohol, those programs exist. And if you have health insurance, your health insurance must by law cover getting treatment for that shit right now. So you have no excuse. Get on the exchange. The next time there's open enrollment, find a plan that is affordable. Unfortunately, the affordable ones are HMOs, and you'll have 3 doctors you can choose from, but that's better than no doctors. Find a doctor. Get some treatment. It's covered by your health care now. Has been for the last 7 years. Maybe nobody told you that. And as of yesterday, it's still covered. So now you really have no excuse. That is the Sober Happy Hour radio broadcast. Chaz,
Yo,
we missed your face. Next
I
week
didn't.
or next time, or maybe not next week, maybe 2 weeks from now. I don't know. Shit. We do this show by the seat of our pants. But I have been watching Philip DeFranco a lot more lately. And I stopped watching for a couple of years, and now I've started watching again. And that man is a goddamn genius. He is a gem. He really is a national treasure. If you've not watched Philip DeFranco, I implore you, watch some Philip DeFranco on YouTube. He is nonpartisan. That's the best part. He doesn't get into that bullshit. He just says, hey, you beautiful bastards. And he welcomes everyone and everyone's opinion. And he even says, maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I'm just a fucking guy on YouTube. What the fuck do I know? And I love it. It's beautiful. It's a wonderful thing. Thank you for reminding me how much I love Philly D, Mr. Robinson.
Yep.
All right, my friends, you can follow us on Twitter at Sober Happy Hour, Facebook.com/Sober Happy Hour. Shoot us an email, soberhappyhour@gmail.com. Don't forget to hit subscribe. It should be right above or below my balls right now. Hit the button, ding that bell if you want to let everybody else in your family know from the alert that shows up on your computer when we're going to be live next. That little bell will notify you. Give us a review and a rating and subscribe on iTunes. And if you want to donate some money, there's a link in the description right below. You can give us your hard-earned cash. We promise we'll put it to good use. That is it. If you or yours is considering getting sober, I highly recommend it. Gentlemen, good night.
Good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.